Let's open with a word of prayer. Holy God, we thank you for the privilege of being here at this camp meeting. For being able to share this experience with all of our friends around the world. We ask that you would guide each of us individually and collectively into a better understanding of your word. In Jesus' name, amen. I want to welcome everybody once again. We've been here one day, and we've already had really good discussions and a blessed time. So last week at the online Canadian camp meeting, you'll recall that I had two presentations that were addressing the subject of the Second Amendment. And I did mention that that was not the first time that I had spoken of this subject. I'd spoken about it many times before. And some members took it upon themselves to actually go back and share or review some of those earlier presentations. So I certainly want to encourage everybody to do that. I think there may be 4 to 5 presentations that I've done in the past that have 6 that have got the Second Amendment in the title. So this is a subject that I've spoken of or about many times in the past. I gave you the background why that subject came up. And I hope all of you watched the 2 presentations that Katia did. At the same camp meeting, of course. And how those 2 presentations relate to each other. So we're in person this weekend, so we want to take the opportunity to dialogue with each other. So I just want to clarify, I know we had the chat open. So this is for the technical team. I don't have Zoom open on my computer. Do I need to open Zoom? I'm just doing it now. Sorry about this slight delay. I forgot about the chat that I'm not on Zoom. Okay, so I want to begin by asking the question, How many people here, just by a show of hands, watched Katya's presentations too that she did? Okay, so about maybe a quarter of the people. So what I would like is for those of you who watched her presentations to give a summary of what you think she was saying, what the message she wanted to give to us. So put your hands up if you want to volunteer. If you don't want to say it, then you don't have to. Are you going to tell me what you think or you're not? Okay, so I'll move on then if you're not sure. Anyone else? For those online, I didn't translate that. Water? Okay, so the summary that Water got was that it was what kind of men? That mostly it's white men that want gun ownership, and the people that suffer the most because of this gun ownership, even though they're not the target per se, are whom? Women and black people in general. Women, children, and people of color. Anything else? Okay, Moni? Okay, so Blessing's understanding of what Katia was trying to teach is that the patriarchal system, you use the word corrupt, has corrupted the right to own guns. Yep. Anyone else? Okay, so I'm just going to put that down. Hopefully this will work. So we get white men, got that? And the people who are going, they own guns. I think that was said. And the victims are people of color, women, and children. That's what you got? The second answer that I got was that patriarchy has corrupted, or did you want to put the right to self-defense? Anyone else? Other people watched the presentation, they didn't get anything from it, or they're not sure what she was trying to point she was making. Debbie? So she gives a historical context. So the historical context was the preamble to the point that she wants to make. So it's the point that I want us to understand that she wanted us to see. No? You weren't sure, Debbie? I understand that she spoke about the historical setting and the dynamic around the Second Amendment. But beyond that, I wanted to try to understand what people took away from her study. Charity? So Charity got the point that it went from corporate or militia protection to individual protection. And when did that change occur? Just give me a year-ish, a decade. Okay, so around the 1960s, in the middle of the 20th century, that's when the change began to happen. So we say, and you got that from her study. Okay, does anybody else want to comment? Give some input. No? Okay, so let's go with that date for a moment. So I want to read something to you. And we'll begin with Charity's response. Tell me what you think this means. So I'm not going to give the reference. Every citizen has a right to bear arms in defense of himself and the state. Okay, so I'll read it quickly now. Every citizen has the right to bear arms in defense of himself and the state. You okay with that? I'll ask a question in a minute. Arian, I'm going to read a second statement. All you need to tell me Is this different or the same as the first statement? And Leon, I'm going to do a third one, same question. Every citizen has a right to bear arms in defense of himself and the state. Arian says it's the same statement. Third one. Every citizen has a right to keep and bear arms for the common defense, and this right shall never be questioned. Leo? Sure. I'll just read this quickly. Every citizen has a right to keep and bear arms for the common defense, and this right shall never be questioned. Is it the same statement or is it different? It's written by someone else. I'm not. I'm not. It's obviously it's a different author, but I'm saying, is it the same thing? Pascal? Okay, that was my question to you. Mark, what is common defense? Corporate. Common defense is corporate defense. Does that help? If it doesn't help, that's fine. To have possession. So keep means to have possession in your cupboard. Bear means hold it in your hand or wrap it around your shoulder. Same. Charity. My question to you originally was, when did it change from militia, corporate, to person, individual? And you said the mid 20th century. So my first question is, do you know when the Second Amendment was written, ratified? No. What would you know then, if not the year, the month? No. So you said no, not the. I was wondering which one you. Okay, no. Anybody know the year? Did you look up? So it's 1791. That's fine. So that's the ratification or the writing of the Second Amendment. Charity, my question to you, those three statements that we just read, when do you think they were written? Before you answer that, you said that it goes from corporate to personal mid 20th century. Question one, what are these three statements saying? Because they're all saying the same thing. What are they saying in essence? So she said the people are allowed to bear arms, weapons. So if anybody else want to give a summary, R- rephrase it. She's correct. So I would say that these statements collectively teach, Curtis, that individuals can come together as a militia, common good, protect the state, and they can protect themselves as individuals. Is that what you saw? Okay. You said mid 20th century. When do you think these statements were written? So these are after the 1960s that you said. Who would have written those things after the 1960s? Which kind of legislators? Democrats, Republicans, good people, crazy people? Who was writing? Who would have written that? Normal. So someone like Biden would have written something like this. You don't know that Biden's against or he's pro-gun restriction. You didn't know that? Yeah, he doesn't want people to have guns. Biden wouldn't have written that, I'm suggesting. Okay. Sorry? People who manufacture guns, they could have done that. People who buy the guns from them, they might have done that. Certainly politicians. Tamina? Judges could have made a comment. They could have said that. Okay. So these statements were written between the year 1817 and 1819. Which is about how many years adrift from what you said? It's 150 years. So 1791 to 18, whatever it is, 18, 19 is how many years? Okay, so I'll take that at face value, 26 years. What does that tell you, Charity? So the idea to bear arms, if it's 26 years, the likelihood, it's probable that this idea was when? 1791. Because remember, we've discussed this before, the 10 Amendments, the Bill of Rights, I'm not asking for the literal ratification, but they were created or crafted when? After they finished the 10th what? No, not after they finished the 10th Amendment. Someone else. It's at the same time as the Constitution. The Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments, and they're all put together at the same time as the Constitution. So I wish you hadn't said it didn't make sense, because this was just a refresher of what we've taught many times before. Sorry. Curtis, the relationship between the two documents, Bill of Rights, Constitution, and what they're there for. So tell me what the Constitution is. So the Constitution is a federal document. The United States is a federation of states. States are governments. The Bill of Rights was produced to do what? To protect the rights of the people, someone else, against whom or from whom? Magda, not from the states, from the federation. So the Bill of Rights are the rights of the citizenry against the federation. It's not against the state per se. Okay, so we know from the very beginning that there was a tension between the states' rights and the federal rights, or the federation's rights. All these three statements were drafted by the states, by three separate states. And it's their contemporary explanation, position, understanding of how the governance of the federation, the country, should work. So this idea that first it was a militia and then it gradually over time drifted to individuals is not historically correct. So I want us to all be sure and understand that. So if you go to the Second Amendment, going to volunteer, Brian? If you go to the Second Amendment and you see this tension, which word highlights this tension that is going on between the two groups at the very beginning, not today? So we'll call one group the Federalists, and we'll call the other group, what do you want to call? Which ones? So we won't call them socialists. We'll call it something that we do. Doesn't literally have to be their names. Okay, so Emma, we'll go with the statists or the states' rights people. There's a tension. Where do you see the tension, Brian, in the Second Amendment? Pick a word. You want me to read the Second Amendment? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay, so you're saying that not be infringed is the that shows you the tension. Natalie, do you want to participate? Does anybody want to participate instead of Natalie? Natalie, do you want to participate? I didn't ask a question yet. I'm asked Natalie because we had a conversation over lunch about this issue that she made a point that I want to pick up on. One second. Sorry? If you don't want to participate, I can't ask you the question. If you don't want to, so is that yes? Okay. So we've got the tension. We know that. Brian said not infringed. You tell me what the word is, or phrase, however you want to. Where is it in the Second Amendment where you see the tension? People. Anyone else? No, she's got the right answer. People. Do you want to comment on that? That's what I meant. Okay. Blessing. Okay. So Blessing said the tension or the words are militia and people. So I want to suggest it's not militia. Why is it not militia? You can answer that question or another one. Why is it not militia, Curtis? Oh, wait there. Why is it not militia, even though you said it was? You're not sure? Okay. So, Curtis, why is it not militia? Because both sides agree militia is valid. It should be there. Now you have these one group that want to add something. And what did they want to add? Are you so Natalie, when they put the word people in there, what technique are they using? Methodology, if you want to say. I want to know what you say, not what I say. Okay, so Natalie says this is repeat and enlarge. Blessing, do you agree with Curtis's position that he said after listening to it? One second. That they both agree militia should be there. Okay, so he agrees. So my question is, to add the word people, is that repeat and enlarge? So you say it's not. How many people think it's repeat and enlarge to put the word people there? How many people disagree? How many people don't know? Okay. So we have a mixture. Who wants to answer that question? Monica? That's fine. Arian? That's fine. Emma? Before you answer, what's the question? Who agrees that this is not repeat and enlarge? And if it's not, what is it? And why isn't it? Okay, so you didn't put your hand up before. You changed your mind. So okay, so Emma's flipped. Good. So you believe it is repeat and enlarge? Yes. Okay. Arian, you said it isn't. Why are you reading the Second Amendment? It's not going to help. Won't help to read it. But you can go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Read it. What, to write out the Second Amendment? I don't know who the names of the people are. This is an exercise in logic. So I'm not going to put. I don't know who the people are. So I've got people. I've got people and militia. They're the two groups. I don't. Okay, for the people who are up to speed, I'll try to get the answer. Then I'll summarize at the end. If you're not up to speed, while they're thinking about that, I'll partially answer your question. I asked a few questions. I asked what was original intent. The answer I got was militia. Then I said, what about the individual right for gun ownership? I got told that that was 170 years after the Second Amendment was written. So it took a century to change from militia to individual rights. Okay with that? Not the wording, the understanding. New interpretation of text. I then showed evidence and said that it happened 26 years after the ratification of the Second Amendment. I then said 26 years is the same as no years. Same time. So there are people who are contemporary with the writing of the Second Amendment who don't agree with it. The it being who can bear arms. Everybody agrees that people coming together for the common good, which the document calls a militia, is acceptable. Then they add a word in that I suggest identifies tension over this issue. The word was people. So the word people is showing you this tension. Are you okay with that so far? What's it in tension with? What's the word people in tension with? With militia. So there's a tension there. So then I asked about the relationship between people and militia. I was told that this is repeat and enlarge. Repeat and enlarge means what? You say the same thing again. You agree with that? Are you up to speed, Monica? Okay. So if it's repeat and enlarge, what does the word people mean? The word people means militia, which would mean that we get rid of this symbol and now people equal militia. But we've just read that it doesn't, because those three statements by those three states are much more explicit. It says you can do things for the common good, the state, but it's explicit that it says you can also take care of yourself individually. Okay, so Arian, you think it's repeat and enlarge? Okay, so we still got increasing numbers of repeat and enlarges. Put your hands up if it's not. Debbie, tell me why it's not repeat and enlarge. If you need time, let me know. Need some time? Okay, before we do that, put your hands up if you believe it is repeat and enlarge. Okay, will this work if Vivian answers? Yeah. With the audio, how will that? I can't if it's Vivian. You'll have to repeat it. Okay, I don't know how that works. My brain hurts. Work something out and tell me if we can get it to work. Or we can just try it now because I don't know. I repeat what she says. Okay, go ahead, Vivian. Vivian said it's repeat and enlarge. Tell us why. So Vivian said, based upon what I said, it the people equals the militia. What you just did was repeat what I said, but I wanted to know why.
One is a militia or defense itself. Mhm. And the people, it's a group of, it's composed of individual. So the individual person has the right to self-defense itself. Self.
Okay. Arian, why is it repeating in large? Oh, I didn't repeat that answer. Sorry. It's okay. It's okay. Go ahead. Sorry, my fault. Why is it repeating in large? It's repeating in large because it repeats. So, sorry, that's a definition of a circular argument, I think. Okay, so the repeats are losing the fight at the moment. Okay, the opposers. Go ahead. Go ahead. The Mark wants to give it a shot. So this is going to prove that it is repeating in large. It mentions militia first. And all these militias have arms. And then you can zoom in and you have one person with a gun. Voila, repeat and enlarge. Is that it? Good. Okay, so this is, I know, amusing. And I want to make a statement, if seriously, because I get accused a lot of manipulating either people or information, that I play games with people. And my defense for that is that methodology is not for the faint of heart. Faint of heart means those who are emotionally or mentally weak. It's a lot harder than people think. And what I am not doing now is changing any parameters, saying something contradictory to what I said last week. Because what I said last week is that exactly the same as what Mark just said? Or is it different? Put your hands up if it's the same. I'm just going to say if last week's presentation was the same. Curtis wants to add the word conclusion. And we smile But the reason he does that, because he wants to take out methodology. He wants to say, I came to the same conclusion, but I didn't use the same methodology. So I didn't want to go dig that deeply unless you feel it's important. So I'll answer my question. I think what Mark said was pretty much what I said last week. And even though I haven't given an opinion yet, the fact that I'm laboring the point, because we have intelligent people here who are disagreeing. So either last week's study was wrong, or the point that I'm making now, even though it's related, is not the same point that was made last week. And many of you are confused how to handle, I'm going to use the word logic now. And I want us to see, I didn't entrap anybody, but there are people who are persuaded that they can see something. And you've got other people who say there's nothing to see here. Okay, Blessing, tell us why this is not repeat and enlarge. So the militia, by design, have been raised up to protect. I missed protect what? To protect the common good or the collective good. But when it comes to individual what? So can I use property? So when it comes to personal or individual property, the militia are not there to protect that. And therefore, Lessing says it's not a repeat and enlarge. So if it's not a repeat and enlarge, why stick the word people in? So they've stuck the word. My question was, if it's not repeat and enlarge, why put the word people in? Someone saying what? Because they have an agenda. These people want to force the word people in there. That wasn't a good way of saying it. And doing so makes it an ambiguous document. But they have an agenda because they want individuals to be able to bear arms. And what we have to ask ourselves, the people on the other side, the Federalists will call them, what was their intention of the Second Amendment? Was it that anybody and everybody can carry guns? or that you could have, we will call it a state army. And if you think it's a state army, there's no need to add the word people in there. Unless you have an agenda, which is, I think, what is what you're saying. Anybody persuaded? Persuaded that it's not repeat and enlarge? That means you are persuaded? Andres? My question was, there's a word that's in tension, which someone said is the word people. Someone then said it's repeat and enlarge of militia. Someone said it's not repeat and enlarge of militia. It's two separate entities. So you repeat and enlarge to double down on a point. And your question is? So the question is, what was the original intent, or how do we read it today? So it's both. There's tension back in that time period about who can have gun ownership. For protecting themselves. If it's just the state right or the individual right. It's one question. The other one is, what's the purpose of the document, of the statement? Because if you were going to write it and you believed that everybody can own a weapon, then you would probably say something like this. Every citizen has a right to bear arms in defense of themselves and the state. Therefore, that would not be a repeat and enlarge. It would be two separate groups doing two separate things. And if that was the intent of the Second Amendment, it's not a repeat and enlarge statement. Hopefully we're all on the same page now. Because it looks really that it is a repeat and enlarge. It has all the characteristics of it. But I think originally it was not intended to be that way. Within? So the military is obviously a group of people. But individuals can't be the militia. So Vadim says, therefore, it cannot be repeat and enlarge. Tamina? Is Vadim correct or incorrect in his conclusion? He's incorrect. Okay. Hope you don't mind. Elisa, is he correct or incorrect? Incorrect. Okay. Oh, sorry, Vadim. We the people think you're incorrect. So they will explain off camera. All lightness aside, all joking aside, it's just another example of how we get words, statements, and how we go about interrogating them with the rules that we have. And when we do it, it seems really simple, but it's really easy to get tripped up. I saw his hand. Oh, Emma, I didn't see your hand, Emma. Sorry. Oh, what's you're going to make a defense for repeating a large or something else? Okay, so Emma's going to double down on it. This is repeating in large. So Emma says the Federalist manipulated the states people and called tension repeat and enlarge. I think that's what you just said. That's what I just said. Yeah. Okay. So my response to Emma is if you were going to do a document, would you have written it like that? Poetic repeat and enlargement. Or would you have written it as Mississippi wrote it in 1817? Every citizen can protect themselves and the state. It's a much better crafted statement, I think. If you're going to write a legal document, would you deliberately make it ambiguous? So if you can't, if you can't agree, that's a compromise document, but it's not the definition of repeat and enlarge. Walter. So you agreed with Vadim. Okay. Curtis. I know. Stop there. Tell me the definition of tautology. Somebody. Put your hand up. Who's doubling? I got the word doubling. a tautology is always proven true. Anyone else? TAUT. T. Is it TAUT? Yeah, TAUT. Saying the same thing twice, which is repeat and enlarge. Go ahead. So by definition, a tautology is a redundant statement. It has its place in poetry. Curtis didn't say that. But your point. So if you're going to create a legal document, would you want to put a tautology or redundancy into that? Or you just want to I'll just say, if you want to get to the point, what would you do? How would you create unambiguous documents? I guess it's a rhetorical question because we should all know the answer to that. That you make it your best intention to have a clear statement. We know that. We don't even have to guess. Because if you go from number 11 onward, read those amendments. And they're very short, very precise, very clear. And they all have these sort of appendages or parts, but the amendments themselves are normally one sentence and they're very explicit. Which means that you should expect the Bill of Rights or the first 10 to have a very similar feel to them. Walter. So Walter has just asked in question form the conclusion that Curtis had made. Okay, so this study today has been to try to review what was spoken last week, to try to understand what this document really meant and how we should approach it. And what we have found, which really shouldn't surprise us, is that it's very easy to apply methodology incorrectly. And I know that people say, well, tell us how to do it correctly. And like all things, most things, is both a science and an art. And I'm not saying I'm an expert on it, but I think hopefully what we can gather today is that in a multitude of counsel, there's safety. So I hope all of us have come at least to the same place, except for Vadim's comment that Walter agreed with and others don't. And the point that was made last week, which is the point that Mark made, and what keyword did Mark use? It's a phrase we used to use a lot in the past. Related to fractals. And you should know this, Walter. I'm guessing. What was the word? No. He used the word zoom. He used the word zoom in. And we get that phrase from the idea of fractals. And you said the small is not a repeating pattern of the big. So that's what you said. The individual is not the militia. Fractals or zoom in would say that it is. That was Mark's argument. You get the militia, which is a group of people with guns. You zoom in, he said. You get to the individual with a gun. That's the argument that was used last week, which is a fractal argument. When you use parabolic methodology, you have to stick by some parameters. And you've just broken some. You can't say that not everybody owns guns. I think that's what you just said. That's your argument. Because not everybody is a militia. So you can't compare the people that aren't part of the militia. We have to use methodology or the parameters correctly. You've got individual with a gun and militia with a gun. And they're identical. All the parameters meet. You've got three parameters. What have you got? The three? You got militia. We'll say people. We'll say individuals, because I don't use the word. Individuals. Gun, you said. Individuals, guns, and the third one is of property. Militia, guns, state. People, guns, property. He has all the properties of fractal. I understand what you've said. I understood it at the beginning, but it's not correct methodology. It might. So Walter said it's basic logic. It doesn't mean that it's productive of the right answers just because it's logical. We'll run out of time. I'll let Tamina and Elisa maybe help you out on that. That's because they're the ones that disagree. Okay, if there's no more pressing questions, we've run over time. And we meet back in a few hours. It's in about 3.5 hours if you're online. Let's close with prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you that we can come together and that we can learn from each other. As iron sharpeneth iron, may each of us be an instrument in your hand to help our other fellow members to come to a clearer understanding of truth. As each of us, wherever we are, discuss today's lesson with those around us, may we see this study as a tool or a help to better understand your word, your will, and our mission. In Jesus' name. Amen.